Hi everyone, this is Noah Sandler from mtgocademy.com. I'm going to be doing a Dragons of Tarkir draft today, so let's jump into queue. Boy, these fill up fast. Okay, so there's Gleam of Authority, Rakshasa, Gravecaller. I think Gravecaller is the best uncommon in this set, so it'll be an easy pick. I do think Gleam of Authority is pretty strong. It gets out of hand pretty quickly, and if you play it with 3 mana, you can probably at least get a trigger out of it. And usually you don't cast it when your opponent has a bunch of mana untapped anyway. And if it sits in play, which it does pump itself, the creature that you put the aura on, so that card can get out of the range of burn spells pretty quickly. So, but yeah, we're going to take Gravecaller. We're passing 1, 2, 3, 4 pretty good white cards, and nothing else in any other colors. Marsh Hulk. I would expect to get back Duress, maybe Ojutai's Breath or Sidisi's Faithful, Territorial Rock maybe, Void Squall. And here there's a Bloodchin Rager, which is pretty strong. Calcisma Behemoth, also very good. Sentinels is good. Sarkhan's Rage, but we'll take the Rager. I mean, Warriors is sort of a deck in this format. Black-White is still pretty good, but it's a lot less streamlined as the deck was in Cons. But Rager by itself is just hard to block early, and then potentially gives you a lot of value late game for your other Warriors. So we'll go with that. And here there's a Palace Familiar, Zephyr Scribe, Evolving Wilds, Dromica Warrior is a warrior, Stormwing Dragon, Summit Prowler, Herdchaser Dragon. So this pick is a little interesting. Haven't quite decided for the blue-black exploit deck if I like Zephyr Scribe or Palace Familiar early, because Palace Familiar is such a key card in the deck, and Scribe is pretty powerful and generally going to be a higher pick and a quite higher pick in non-exploit decks. But if you are going to be exploit, makes it kind of close, because getting Familiars, Jeskai Sages, Sulta Emissaries is pretty important, but I think I'd take the Scribe. Also, Stormwind Dragon I think could be a decent pick here. Red-black aggro, the Bloodchin Rager works better in an aggro deck than like a blue-black exploit deck, so I think that Stormwind Dragon could also be a pretty good pick here, but I'm going to go with the Scribe. I'm still going to leave red-black aggro deck open as an option. And there's a Sabertooth Outrider if we were red-black aggro, but we'll take the Gurmag Drowner. Honestly, I haven't been having too much success with the blue-black exploit decks lately, but I still end up drafting it quite a bit, and so I don't know. Might just be some variance, but I think one of the issues with the deck is that you need to make sure you draft win conditions. So it's easy to just take all the exploit creatures and the like the exploitable creatures, like Palace Familiar, and not end up with enough actual finishers. So you sit there, you get little incremental advantages, sack your creatures, draw some cards, but eventually you have to turn that into a game plan. Like, you actually have to win the game off of that. So I'm going to tend to prioritize win conditions a little bit higher than I normally would in a draft deck, because I think that if you get to Fate Reforged, sometimes it's hard to fill in to get enough win conditions in Fate Reforged, so you have to take them a little bit earlier in Dragons. Salt Road Quartermaster is very good. There's an Ojutai Summons, which can work pretty well in a deck like this, just a strong card, so I think that's what we're going to take. I don't like Hedonist Trove. Anticipate's good, Coat is good. I mean, seeing this Quartermaster here, yeah, maybe black isn't open, but I think we got to take the summons if we're maybe moving into blue. But I like Quartermasters a lot. And here there's another Drowner. Sign of Ugin, Coat with Venom, Clawsodon Yearling. So green does seem to be open. I'll take another Drowner, and at this point I really would like to pick up some Palace Familiar type cards. And black is looking to be pretty cut. And this is a format where you really are rewarded for staying open. You should not get married to your first picks. I mean, there's a Meringue River Skeleton. I think it's the best card in the pack. I've heard good things about CDC's Faithful, so I'm open to that card. But I think I'd take the River Skeleton. I mean, Artilleryst, another reasonable green card. So green does seem to be open. I don't think Artilleryst is going to be that good in a blue-green deck, really. So I think I'd take the River Skeleton, but even now I'm considering moving out of black. I like Godol Lurker over Updraft Elemental. There's a Dutiful Attendant, which can go well with the Drowners, but I think Lurker is just a more powerful card, and I'm considering moving out of black. But yeah, there's a lot of incentives to staying really open in this format. And here there's a Marsh Hulk, CDC's Faithful. I'll take the Marsh Hulk. It is a finisher, as I was saying, with these blue-black decks. I think you need to prioritize finishers a little earlier than you might think, because you'll spend a lot of picks on the synergy cards. And Marsh Hulk can definitely finish games. And I guess we'll just take a 2-drop here. So let's move the black back into the deck. Still not excited about the black. Wow, the Stormwing Dragon and Dromica Warrior came back. I'll take the dragon. Ooh, Updraft Elemental. It's a nice late pickup. Student Ojitai. It's the second one that's pretty late. I mean, I'm not feeling that confident about black being open, and I guess green might have... Maybe someone moved into green late into that pack, because we were seeing a lot early, but green also dried up a little bit at the end. So I'm pretty sure we're not going to get a great pack 3, but other than that, I'm not sure about like what colors we should be into. I'm going to check Tarka's command to see if that's worth a bunch. Probably not worth too much. Rares have usually depreciated by this point. It's worth 2 tickets. It's the kind of card you could take, but I'm going to take Ruthless Deathfang. I think it's better than summons. We already have 3 good exploit creatures, so it's not that hard to trigger the ability, and I wouldn't want to expect it to table. It's not a very powerful pack either. Kolaghan's Command. I think this is still bugged. Like, it automatically deals 2 damage to your opponent. So the card is quite a bit better. But for us, not a great pack. So Umgar's Scorn could be okay. Not really big on the Monastery Lore Master. Dance the Skywise is not very good. Right now we can get back Ojitai's Summons with Lore Master. Don't like Roost and Stasher too much. So this is a pretty poor pack for us. I mean, a Force Spike isn't really worth it. We've got 1 dragon right now. We might get maybe 2 more. So the card could end up being playable. I also think it's worth like a ticket, maybe. I think I can take it, but Lore Master might be the pick in a Pro Tour. There's Swift Warkite, Glint. This is looking kind of scary at this point. So what do we just take? So we have a Stormwing Dragon. I think I just take the Warkite. Maybe splash it. But just all around pretty awful pack for us. So I'm getting a little worried that we're getting cut. This pack looks a lot better. Hannah Silmagar, Ojai, Interceptor, Minister of Pain, Butcher's Glee are all great. And I think I want to take the Interceptor. Just a pretty decent finisher. Just like 4 power flyer attacking on turn 4 is pretty good. Minister of Pain I think is also pretty good, and same for Hand. I'm not sure which one I would take. We've already got a good number of exploit creatures, and we've got nothing to really take advantage of, like Palace Familiar type cards. So I guess Palace Familiar is really the one you want right now, but we'll take Interceptor here. There's Cunning Breeze Answer, there's a Vulturous Aven, we'll take Aven. So we've got a lot of exploiters for the Ruthless Deathfang. And a Flatten. Also Youthful Scholar. We do have a lot of exploit creatures, so it's kind of tempting to take that. And it's a little slow if we're exploiting with 4 drops, so we're like turn 4 Youthful Scholar, turn 5 Drowner. Seems kind of close though. Hard to go wrong with Flatten. Right now we have basically 0 removal other than the Deathfang. So I think we just gotta take the Flatten. So Damnable Pact, Elusive Spellfist. I'm not the biggest Damnable Pact fan. I feel like it might be more of a sideboard card. Because it's very poor against aggressive decks, but it can be good in grindy matchups. So I think I'll take it and just likely leave it for board. And it's something you can play main deck, but I think it's a bit clunky. Like if you're using it to draw cards and you're facing a deck that is putting some pressure on you, like just having to tap out like 5 or 6 mana, not affect the board, and losing extra life, like it can narrow your options sometimes. And a card I think can stay dead in your hand a lot. Pretty happy to pick up an Encase and Ice. It's a really strong sideboard card. But then there's the option you could just kill your opponent with it. But for black control decks like blue-black, I like this in maybe a red-black deck, but in blue-black, by the time you'd use this to finish your opponent off, you'd hopefully have enough board control that just doming your opponent for 5 or 6 damage wouldn't be the difference between winning or losing. Like you'd have a couple flyers in play, and it would just speed the game up by a turn maybe. I prefer Negate to Duress, so pretty similar effects. Duress is more proactive, but it can miss. Negate, sometimes you can be in combat. You can counter combat trick. Like you can get some advantage off Negate, the surprise factor. And I'm more likely to main deck a Negate over Duress. Guess we'll take Dance of the Skywise. So the pack started out really poor, but it ended up alright. So still not really sure what's going to happen for the last pack. I feel like we passed some decent red. Oh, there's the Kolagun's command. Oh, okay, it was a Tarka command. So, yeah, pack 1 was really odd. Like it seemed at different points that basically each of all 5 colors was open at some point. So, not really sure what's going to happen for pack 3. Hopefully it goes well, but we're locked into blue-black exploit at this point. So, like all we can do is just kind of hold on and hope that we get some Sultai Emissaries and Jeskai Familiars, or Jeskai Sages. Well, Dance of the Skywise is playable. The Silumgar Scorn, we have still just 1 dragon. If I don't have to waste a pick on it, like I could take, we got a Contradict here. I'm not a big Contradict fan, but it is playable. I think I'm a little worried about our last pack. We might end up a little short on playables, so I think we could play Contradict. I guess we have 2 dragons here. If there's nothing else in the pack, I'll take some red fixing and maybe play the Warkite. Well, Sidisi's Faithful is a nice pickup at the end. So yeah, I could maybe splash the Warkite, but I'm not really going to spend high picks on that, I don't think. I don't think it's worth both spending picks and then slots in our deck and mucking up the mana base a little bit to try to get the war cut in. There's a Mastery of the Unseen. And right into being Bathed in Dragonfire. There's a Tranquil Cove here, so we could table the Cove. I think I take Mastery. I think it's just a strong enough card, and I think there's a good chance we table Tranquil Cove. So we could splash it. And right into being also fine pick here, but I think it's just such a strong card in a control deck. And it's unbeatable if we face it, but that's not really why I'm taking it. And to top that off, at the very end of the pack, white kind of seemed open, and that's a Citadel Siege, so I might just move into white at this point. It's kind of crazy, but I mean, this is enough power in white. I think I might just splash black. Like, we don't need the Bloodchurn Rager, this. We can splash Flatten, Gravecrawler, Marsh Hulk as a morph, Deathfang. But let's see if there's any other white Outpost Siege. These are just really powerful packs. Though, very disappointed to just have a complete blank for this pick. Because if I'm going to be white, clearly white is open. I should be able to get a white card from this pack, but there's just... Yeah, because I might end up short on playables, but there's just nothing here. I'd love to have just a fixing land. And I might just take Windscarred Crag. Maybe I'll just take the Outpost Siege. We could still... Well, okay, what else could we do? Because I don't want to end up short on playables, so, I mean, Abzan Advantage, maybe... Sage's Reverie... For each aura you control. We don't have any auras, that's not going to work. I guess I'll just take Siege. It's just such a weak pack. Battle Brawler, Pyrotechnics. Jeez, Bathe. Channel Harm. Lotus Passion. Wow. Battle Brawler. What do we do now? I mean, I guess we could just not play the Siege. I'm thinking about taking Pyrotechnics. You'd have Outpost Siege, Warkite, Pyrotechnics as a red splash. Or I could just take Lotus Passion. I mean, Battle Brawler's not that great here. Wow, this is pretty crazy. Maybe it could be red-white. I mean, we have no fixing. This is tough. Be Pyrotechnics. Or just Jhin, stay safe. I'm going to take Jhin. Alright, Angler, Scoured Barrens. I think we take Scoured Barrens. It's possible that we shouldn't be on the Citadel Siege plan at this point, but it's so powerful, I think I need to be just taking as much fixing as possible and trying to make it work. But wow, this is pretty crazy at this point. And a Whisk Away, I mean, just solid playable. Backwater. Great pickup there. Need some more lands. Soul Summons, Swiftwater Cliffs. I mean, because if we're playing Siege, we may or may not actually play a Soul Summons. If we're playing Siege, we can probably play Soul Summons, and then there's Cliffs. Like, I'm not just going to splash Outpost Siege and Warkite if I'm playing the white, so I think I'm going to take the Soul Summons and maybe try to make a... Yeah, I was going to say, maybe try to make like a white base, but we know the cards that are tabling, and we know that there's just no white in like the next few packs, so I don't really think that's going to work out. But we'll take a Skullkeeper. This deck is pretty crazy. So, I'll have to... Yeah, those picks were insane. I'm I have to take a close look at this to see. There was a student at Ojitai I missed out on. I guess a Krushok maybe. Skirmisher, you could. Okay, Enhanced Awareness is good. So it looks like we're not going to play red. Get that out of the way. Silumgar Scorn. Set up with one dragon. May or not run Vulturous Aven on the splash. No Will the Naga. No Krushok. Maybe negate. I mean, I do like the early game. I think we've got some decent early blockers, like Updraft Elemental, Skullkeeper, probably run the Sidisi's Faithful, Soul Summons. Then we got some good like Drowners on 4. Student Ojitai will have a decent number of non-creature spells, so that could stall the game out a little bit. And I don't think I want anything else here. I don't think I want to splash the skeleton. So it does, like, you can splash morphs pretty easily, but the skeleton does require 2 black before you can megamorph it and regenerate. So that is, like, it is sort of difficult to do on, like, with the minimal amount of black that I'm planning on playing. Like, it's playable, but I feel like it's an easier cut, since getting to the second black, be able to flip it and regenerate is kind of tough. And if we're just sitting back regenerating with it, we might not have black for other spells. So it just puts a little bit more pressure, makes it a little bit weaker. And right now we're at 23. Definitely going to run 18 lands. I think maybe Contradict could be cut. And maybe this will be the deck. I don't think we have any synergy with the Skullkeeper, but I think we just need some early drops to trade off. And I don't think we want to move into more black for those, just to get some slightly better bears, because we want those cards to come out in turn 2. I think this is going to be the deck. It's a lot of 4-drops. There's not that much I can do to bring the curve down other than just play these early black creatures. I mean, I could maybe move the River Prowler in. If we get lucky enough to get a black on turn 2, I could run out as Regenerator maybe. Or just another Morph brings the curve down a little bit. So I'm pretty clunky at 4. I feel like I might want to cut the Vulturous Aven. I mean, look what this does to the curve. Boom. Curve looks a lot better. Excuse me. And just because I'm minimizing black, I mean, it's better than Drowner. Against a deck with flyers, I would definitely want Aven to be a better blocker. And we could cut Negate. I feel like Negate something relatively cheap to hold up is a good idea. Like, I don't know Negate versus Contradict, which is better. I tend to prefer Negate just because it's cheap, but that's something I'm not sure about. Also, the mana for the deck will be a little bit rough, so I won't always get double blue on turn 5, I think. Usually should, but won't always get that. Yeah. Aven could definitely make the cut here, but I do think I just want to keep my curve a little lower. If I I don't have like a turn 3 play, and I'm just waiting for turn 4 to play my exploit creatures, I think that's pretty bad. So I think I do this. You can make an argument for Aven over a Drowner, but I mean, I'm going to minimize the black sorta, so I don't want to not be able to cast my 4-drop on turn 4. Alright, so the mana base is going to be maybe the most interesting part of the deck, because it's pretty odd, and this is not a standard mana base. So, I mean, you only have a few white cards, but you're playing a double white card, and a 2-drop. And then a few black cards, not quite as intensive. A lot of blue, not extremely intensive blue, but a lot of actual cards. So we can't not have blue, unless if we just get like Soul Summons, Mastery, Citadel Siege, that's a win by itself. So with the Siege, I mean, I'd like to get 6 white sources, I might have to settle for 5. For the black, I think 5 sources is fine. Blue, this gives us 10 right now, I think 9 is sufficient, so I'm going to cut an island and put an extra plane. So we're going to have 6 sources of white, 9 blue, and 5 black. I think that's sufficient. And with this deck, it's kind of interesting on whether you play or draw. Because it doesn't have the best mana base, so it might mulligan frequently. So that's an issue you gotta consider. Like if you draw, you both get to keep more hands. Like on 7, on 6, you get to keep more often because of that extra card. And also, when you do mulligan, your hands are better because you get that extra card. You're less likely to stall for a turn. So that's a nice thing. And typically I decide based on how much early defense I have and how important it is for me to get underneath my opponent's defenses, or at least to gain the early board control, because that can be pretty important. Against an aggro deck, you almost always want to be on the play. And in control and control matchups, usually being on the draw is correct. And then something in between, like control against mid-range, I think you still just want to be in the draw. And the more early defensive creatures you have and early cheap removal, then I think the more you want to be in the draw. Because if you have a hand with just some good removal and like a defender, being on the play does nothing for you. You just play your defender and then you play lands and keep passing and wait for your opponent to do something. So you would have benefited from having the extra card. That said, for this particular deck, I think I want to play first, because if you look at the curve, I'm kind of worried that I don't have too much going on before turn 4. And just a Mega Morph on turn 3 is not always going to be enough. So I think I want to get to 4 mana as quickly as possible. And I'm playing 18 lands, so I should be able to get to 4 mana. But I think getting there before my opponent, just getting the jump on my opponent, will help me get control of the board faster. So if I had more like 2-drops that were good blockers and 3-drops that were good blockers, I think I would draw first with this deck. But as is, I think I got to get to 4 mana quickly, so I'm going to be playing. So that's it. I'll see you for round 1. Welcome back. This is the start of round 1. As I said, we're going to play first. And definitely keep this hand. It says Mastery of the Unseen and Citadel Siege. And a 2-drop. So we don't have blue mana, but we've got 9 sources. And we've got 5 more sources of white for the Siege. I mean, this hand has just too much free I win potential to ever mulligan. Even though it's reasonably likely that we do stumble on mana at some point, being on the play. So we'll start with Soul Summons so we can attack. Mastery turn 2 doesn't give us any advantage. So opponent is red-white so far. Okay, Regenerator's pretty good. We'll go with Summons. Probably hit an island. Plains. Dang. Alright, now just 4 sources of white. Clear misplay, should have played the Prowler. Or Skeleton. Okay, Aspirant. Starting to get a little scary. I think to play Prowler, if we draw land, we can go Mastery, leave up black. I mean, it actually works against the Aspirant to hold it off, so I think we just put that into play. You could also play Mastery and then morph the Skeleton once we get to 3 mana, and then maybe you could, I guess it takes 4 mana, but you could maybe unmorph it and gain some life off Mastery. But we'll trade the 2/2 for the 2/1 here. Oh, don't twin bolt me though. That'd be a blowout. I mean, I just have to accept that, but would suck if they had it. Stormreach Brawler. Okay, Island. That's very good. We'll go with Mastery, leave up a black. Let's regenerate. You could also just play the Faithful. Might be better if we want to use Drowner on 4. But we can also just sit back and use Mastery. So opponent being red-white, I mean, we just want to survive as long as possible. There's a morph. Just keep our life total as high as possible. Okay, Island. So we can pass in Mastery. We can also Drowner, sack Prowler. Like we get the impulse effect, we might be able to find a Plains. So we can go Siege, Faithful, and from there, I think we'd have a really high chance of winning the game. We could also just play Faithful and pass, and leave a Whisk Away. I think I like Drowner here. Like, looking at the top 4 cards, getting a card I think is really powerful here. We can just sit back and Mastery, but we don't necessarily have a great block the first turn. If this is a morph opponent can flip up, like we could put the Manifest and the Skeleton on the 2/3, get blown up by Trick or something. So it's more like we would just get extra 2/2 sitting in play. It doesn't actually affect the board too much. So I just like getting the Drowner out. It blocks better. I mean, we lose our Regenerator, which is a little annoying, but like we get to Impulse here, and might let us get Citadel Siege out. And just lands an Updraft Elemental. Elemental's not bad. Lands are also okay for Mastery, but I kind of like having a flying creature in case opponent has like a Mischief Karen. So let's take the creature. It's also pretty nice once we get Citadel Siege going, but you don't really need to combo too much with that. There's a Roast. We take 4. A little worried about the morph now, because it could be a Dragon or that 6/6 Trample, or a Sandstorm Charger. So this turn, we could play Lotus Passion. We could do City Seas Faithful and hold up Whisk Away, or Faithful Updraft Elemental. I'm a little worried about the morph. I mean, we can maybe Whisk Away it at some point. Guess I'll just go Faithful as an 0-4. You could bounce the morph. And we'll go up Draft Elemental. So we get 2 creatures on the board. Means if we morph something, flip it off Mastery, we gain a little more life. And but let's see what opponent's working with. Hopefully it's just a Sandstorm Charger. So I'm going to put Faithful on the 2-3. Could put Elemental on 2-3 and Faithful on the morph and just take whatever it is, but I think I just want to see what it is. Let opponent flip. Okay, they don't. So it could be Dragon. That's Scoured Barrens. That gives us Citadel Siege next turn. So we can go for Lotus Passion, or we can just do a blind flip with Mastery. But if we flip with Mastery, we get to hold Whisk Away, so that seems pretty clearly the right choice. So, opponent plays 7th land, they can maybe flip their morph. Then we can Whisk Away it. They're not going to do anything, then I'm just going to manifest end of turn. Okay, Outrider. Death Fang, pretty good. So might as well just throw the Citadel Siege out. Hope they don't have Abzan advantage. Oh, manifested a Marsh Hulk. So I can flip for 6 mana now. So you could definitely just choose dragons. I'm kind of tempted to. We have Mastery of the Unseen out. I mean, so pumping our creatures is awesome, but if we just tap something down every turn, I can't really see losing ever. So I think that dragons is actually the pick. Our hand is extremely powerful. We've got Mastery out. We can flip a Marsh Hulk, gain some life. I just think we tap down our opponent's best creature every turn, and I think that's just a better combo than pumping up our guys every turn. So we'll tap the Sabertooth. We know that we can't actually stop that currently. If the opponent wants to flip their morph or something, we'll just block Faithful. Subscribe. So we can use Mastery. Mastery lets us hold up Whisk Away as well, so I think we just keep sitting back and using Mastery. But Lotus Passion would be pretty good here as well. You could attack for 1 damage with Updraft Elemental. I just don't really see the purpose. Sarkhan's Rage to the face. Okay. Island. That's a little scary. I mean, the morph could be blue somehow, like Silumgar's Spell Eater, maybe. It's also their 7th land, so decent chance that it's just a dragon. Attacks with the 2/3 also. Alright, and it could be a cunning strike. I think we make the same blocks. Actually, that's a little weird, but I keep messing this up. I think updraft on the morph. Like if opponent flipped, that shouldn't really matter. Like if opponent somehow flips and wants to deal 2 extra damage to the creature blocking the 2/2, that might mean something, but it probably won't. Jeskai Runemark. Okay. It gives opponent an extra actual threatening creature. There's an island and a plains, so we can flip Marsh Hulk now. Pretty safe to just attack with at least one of these guys. Get a little bit of damage in. So we'll just pass. We can flip Marsh Hulk, gain 4, and we get a 5/7. Opponent has Evolving Wilds, so let's tap down their flyer. I mean, we could whisk away it, but I'd rather just flip the Marsh Hulk this turn and get out of like double Sarkhan's Rage range. Opponent attacks with Morph and the 4/2. So I think I put I mean, it's possible opponent has some burn spell or something to get through the Marsh Hulk, but I think that's okay. Like we could put it on the morph, and then opponent kind of has to act first, and then we could whisk away or flip. But I think that this should be sufficient. So flip it up for its mana cost. Valor Stance, gain 3 life, we take 4. Let's go to 9. Okay, opponent went to tap mana and didn't. So we can just Mastery and whisk away. Or Lotus Path, whisk away. I like Lotus Path. And now we're just going to pass, like, until opponent just kind of empties their hand. I'm less interested in, like, a second island. So, I mean, what's going on here? They could just be red, blue, splashing white for stance. It's possible that second island lets them play a dragon or something. But, yeah, like, with the Mastery out and the Siege out, I mean, I just want to sit back and just make sure I don't leave any openings for my opponent to randomly get lethal damage. Lightning Berserker. Alright, I think it's finally time to just tap the 4/2. You just whisk away on the Brawler. Is there a double blue morph? So I think first of all we use Whisk Away immediately. So we just see what opponent does before we have to react. They have like Contradict or something. It's gonna be kind of sick. Okay. Second with these two. They got 7 mana up. What is that morph? We tabled that red dragon. I mean, I feel like it's probably not that 6/6 trampler at this point. Could be Durgar Nemesis, possibly. Like, I'm not going to take the morph. I'm definitely blocking it. For the Berserker, we can maybe just put the Updraft Elemental trade. And I could just put the Sidisi's Faithful on the morph. I could try to eat it with the Jin. Maybe it's Lore Master. Nah, opponent had opportunities, I think, to get stuff back. I mean, it's a pretty common one it could be. A Tarka Freet? I don't think so. Yeah, I'm just going to block like this. Okay, reducing the stature, sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, so then we can double mastery. At this point I can attack for 2. I'm just going to tap the morph, I think. I could be wrong. Let's tap the Outrider. I mean, I don't know, it could be some just giant creature I'm not thinking of. Maybe it is Durgar Nemesis. Maybe that's why, like, that might explain why opponent, like, keeps swinging in, but then keeps not flipping when I block with Faithful. Okay, here it is. It is! Wow. Good read. Because, like, it didn't make sense. Like, all these turns, opponent just kept, like, attacking in, I block with Faithful, he's like, don't do anything. It's like, attack in, I block with Faithful, don't do anything. You'd think at some point he would just flip, like, if it was, like, no other morphs made sense, but this one, it's like, you know, he doesn't want to trade this flip for the Faithful because that's his only attack, but he also needs to keep attacking in case if I actually make different blocks at some point. So that's pretty interesting. So let's flip with Mastery first, because maybe we get something we want to manifest, gain extra life. Probably not, though. Student, nice. We'd rather just get an extra creature in play. So we'll let that happen. Gravecaller. That's pretty sweet. I think we just want to gain some life here. Well, we don't have to do it now, we'll wait. So let's make a... we can make a giant attack. So we've got Siege locking down the 4/2, and the opponent just has a defender creature. And then on future turns, they'll have this big defender back to block, but this turn we can sneak in 6 damage. Mastery, Planes, and I'm just gonna flip. 5 life. Could wait a turn. I'll wait. Hit a flatten. We could draw a land and go for Gravecaller. Could make a big attack. I'm just going to pass. And we're probably going to kill our opponent in either next turn or the turn after. Roast. Alright, so let's make another 2/2. And then we'll flip the student in response. There's a negate there. So we go to 16, have 8 cards left in our deck. Should be able to finish this pretty easily. So we can tap a creature. Let's tap their Nemesis. So let's send probably everything in. And we'll do the same thing next turn. Okay, it's fine. Can also get 1 extra damage with the Lotus Path Shin if we use Enhanced Awareness. It'll put us down to 1 card left in our deck. So I'll be a little cautious with that play, but if the opponent just casts the last card in their hand and it kills them, then that's what we'll do. I mean, they have a morph. Like, it could be something. And unfortunately, Enhanced Awareness is my only spell. I mean, what could the morph be? Something that, like that white rare morph that kills a creature? Well, it wouldn't kill any of these creatures. It's not that hard to just wait 1 turn and then not have to go through the rest of my deck, so I think I'm just gonna go for Gravecaller. So I'm just gonna go for Gravecrawler, and I'll just make sure I've got enough creatures for next turn. Opponent gets 1 out to draw something, but I feel pretty safe. So we'll see. It's a pretty good card. Alright, let's just go all in here. Okay. That is game 1.
That's why you don't mess with rotten waffles. Only fresh.
Alright, so, opponent is like an aggro deck, but they're also 3 colors. They had a Valorous Stance, Nemesis, Lore Master, Roast. Possibly they could put in some answers to Citadel Siege. If they have anything in their board, they're probably going to. We can put in Case and Ice, deal with some of their red creatures. Do we have anything that is not good against them? Negate is okay. I've got a couple things to hit with it, but I think we can cut it. Like, hits Roast, Valor's Stance. But I don't think it hits too much. So let's run this. This hand's passable. Doesn't have good early defense, but if I draw something defensive, I think the hand can be pretty good. Because it's got some strong flyers, but it's slow against an aggro deck. Well, that guy can block, or just give us more damage through the air. Soul Summons would be sweet. We can cast that. Opponent has no play. That's good for us. And they might have a Roast. So we got to decide on our morph. We want Lurker or Interceptor. And I think I'd rather have Lurker eat some removal. And I don't expect to flip Interceptor next turn, so I'm just going to start with the Lurker. It's possible I can flip Lurker and morph Interceptor next turn. So it's eating a Twin Bolt. Okay, Draconic Roar. That's another card they have. I mean, so, yeah, they do have multiple cards that we can counter with Negate, but they're all really cheap. Like, you want to counter expensive stuff with Negate. If they have just, like, 7 good cheap removal spells, then I would still put Negate in, but you really want to get the cheap stuff with it. You really want to get the expensive stuff, so you're getting, like, tempo advantage. Lowest Path, Interceptor. If they have a 4-power creature, we're going to be in trouble. We could just Lotus Path trade off. We could face up Interceptor, trade off. It plays around Roast for a turn. We do have to take a little extra damage from Sabertooth. Or we could just morph it, or just Lotus Path, and we've got some good spells to trigger Lotus Path. I guess we'll Lotus Path. If the opponent does play a big creature, which they shouldn't have too many of, they shouldn't have too many, from what we've seen. So do we block? I think we do. The opponent only has so many threats that are as powerful as a 4/2 Trampler. Impact Tremors. That's not particularly scary. Let's go with Ojitai Summons. I've heard some rumblings about Impact Tremors being a deck. And it can be, like, the card can be playable in a deck with a lot of dash cards, but I don't think Impact Tremors like makes the deck good. I just think it's playable. So there's cards like Curse of the... what's it called? Curse of the... Burning something? The Burning Curse. That's what we'll call it. From Innistrad. That dealt 1 damage to your opponent every turn for 2 mana. I mean, that's every single turn. No matter what, your opponent takes a damage. Impact Tremors is some turns they take a damage, some turns they take 2 damage, but overall it's probably pretty similar. So, and that curse was not a very good card. I mean, it was like very, very marginally playable and different format and all. But I mean, I don't see any reason to think that Impact Tremors is enough better that it's going to be triggering. That's going to be triggering 2 or 3 times a turn. I mean, it gives you the option if you have a ton of dash creatures that once your opponent puts their defenses up, maybe you can just sit there and like dash 3 creatures on your turn and pass. So it's like 3 damage every turn to your opponent. But if you do that, you are spending your entire turn putting nothing on the board to deal 3 damage to your opponent. Which, sometimes that's great, but if you're like kind of even racing, like that may not actually be that great. If you're behind, it does absolutely nothing. So opponent has another awesome enchantment, Breakthrough Line. I feel like this card, like when it was released in Fate, I picked it as a card that could be underrated. It's a pretty powerful effect, and with morphs in the format, it didn't seem like it'd be too hard to find targets for it. And I feel like it does a better job than Impact Tremors at a similar effect of just making sure you can finish your opponent off. If they have enough, if they control the board, like you can finish them off, because it does more damage. And then just gives you this inevitability that like your opponent's just going to die, taking 2 to 4 damage every turn, and so they have to kill you quickly. That said, whenever I've drafted decks, I just tend not to have enough 2-power creatures to make it work. So, let's see, opponent plays Refocus. I'm just hardcasting the Marsh Hulk. When you get up to 6 mana, there's very little reason not to just hardcast Marsh Hulk rather than try to morph it and then flip it just to get an extra +1/+1 counter. I mean, I think Megamorph, like the value of it is that you can play it on turn 3 and get value later, but once you can just hardcast it, it's so rarely worth the risk of making it a 2/2 and letting it get shocked, and then having to pay an extra. For this card, you have to pay 10 mana compared to 6, so an extra 4 mana you have to pay. And then I might not be able to do anything for the next turn. So 1/1/1 counter is not worth that much mana. Oh, I don't know if that's a great combo, but Breakthrough Line with Lightning Berserker and Impact Tremors. If you have a lot of mountains, it does a good amount of damage every turn. So that's interesting. It's not going to do it here. But on some boards, it's going to be quite a bit of damage. 1 for dash. I guess the dash gives an extra Impact Tremors hit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then give it haste. So I guess it's 4 damage for 5 mana every turn. So let's flip this. Let's attack with everything. I didn't miss lethal, did I? 4, 8, 9, 11. I don't think so. Like, I could have flattened the creature and not flipped, so I'd get extra 2 damage in, I think. So I'd go to 3. So it looks like I've got it. Can't think of anything in the format that would get me here. I don't think Mob Rule would. Okay. So that was round 1. Round 2 is going to be coming up. So I'll see you then.